Welcome to Brandon Hall Group's Excellence at Work podcast. You will hear from industry leaders covering innovative, cutting-edge business, learning, and HR topics that weave current market research and technology into each episode. Our Excellence at Work podcast is hosted by Brandon Hall Group's Chief Operating Officer and Principal HCM Analyst, Rachel Cook.
Hi, and welcome to Brandon Hall Group's Excellence at Work podcast. Thank you for joining us today. And I'm very excited to have with me Linda Janek, the founder and CEO of Talent Guard. Hi, Linda. Welcome. How are you?
Hi. Good. Thanks. Thanks for having me. I'm super excited to be here.
I'm excited to chat with you today about a really important topic about upskilling and reskilling your workforce. And you've got a lot of great insight to share. And so I'm just so excited to hear from you and to share your wisdom with our audience. And just a little bit about Linda, for those of you that may or may not be familiar. She is the CEO of Talent Guard, as I mentioned, a leading workforce skills management platform that unlocks complete visibility of skills with intelligent data insights to meet business and workforce demands for upskilling and reskilling, talent mobility, and personalized development. They have received a Gold Excellence Award from Brandon Hall Group this year as well. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Super
excited about that.
Yeah, it's great, not just to be recognized by our analyst team, but by our industry, by your industry peers. And so we have judges from all over the world that participate and help evaluate the awards. And so that is, I think you should be very proud. It's very impressive to receive an award. And
is super happy.
That's wonderful. And like I said, I'm really excited to get started and to kind of pick your brain here about what your, kind of your perspective of what you see within the industry with your clients. And before we dive into our discussion, though, can you maybe perhaps share a little bit more about your background and how you, how you founded your organization?
Sure, yeah. Serial entrepreneur to begin with. So this is my maybe my fourth startup. And I've always been drawn to technology and content and bringing the two together to create change and disrupt major industries. And so after I had left my third startup, it was my third startup, I was in a position where I could make a decision whether I wanted to jump into another startup or take a breather and think about what I wanted to do. And as I was making that change it was the dot-com bust, I was helping lots of people make individual career transitions. And I fell in love with that type of work, which was very different than what I had started with. And that led me on a journey to create a career transition firm that I was involved with for about 15 years. And that evolved into a train the trainer certification program for career coaches. Teaching first, I was just going to train them to build up the franchise that I had created, but it ended up getting bigger than I thought it would, and was training lots of individuals across the globe, and many of them ended up being HR professionals who then brought me in to create career centers and coaching programs for managers on how to be better career coaches while employees are going through transition. And then the software evolved from the experience that I had gained with understanding the kinds of complexities that were involved in organizations when they needed to upskill and reskill and support career transition internally.
Wow, that must have been quite of an experience.
It's a journey. You learn a lot along the way.
Especially working with people and helping, and everyone is so different. And there's still some similarities, that there are some trends and patterns that I'm sure you've seen along the way.
Yeah.
That kind of, I think, brings us to where we are today, right? And helping people, whether it's reskilling or upskilling, and now more than ever, we've seen it in our research, how important it is for companies to develop their people and to be able to assess kind of what their needs are. So what are some of the challenges are you seeing with upskilling or reskilling?
Yeah, so typically the customers that we're attracting are in 19 major industries that are being disrupted, such as insurance and manufacturing, where they are seeing jobs going away or skills turning over at such a rapid pace that they can't keep up with the pace of change, especially in knowing what jobs are going away, what are going to be the new jobs, what are the skills that are important in either job, and making sure that we can understand for the people in those roles, we're doing reskilling at scale, so it's not necessarily one individual. And when I think about change, I'll give you an example. We have a lot of insurance companies because one of the jobs that is anticipated will be gone by 2025 to 2030, which is a job my parents had as a claims adjuster. So they're saying, well, if we have 500 claims adjusters internally, we want to keep those individuals, but they need to be reskilled to do something different that the business needs in the future. But we don't know what those future jobs might be. We're feeling the disruption. We're feeling that these employees need to develop, and we need someone to help us keep that forecast up to date, identify the skills that we have now, the skills that are that we do not have that we need to fill a gap for, and then do a highly curated personalized learning and development plan, not only for the individual, but in a cohort, and make that learning happen in short time so that they can be in this new job. And it's typically 1, 2, or 3 talent pools, which represents a particular role that's needed as they continue to grow forward, and then making all those internal transitions happen seamlessly. Because it's not only within an organization, it's across an organization's ecosystem. And we do that really, really well.
Right. And so what are some examples that you can share about the work that you're doing with your clients?
Great. So the first thing that would typically happen is an organization would say, we don't have enough visibility into our skills. Most of the time when we're dealing with organizations, they have extremely messy skill landscapes. Oftentimes what we're seeing, there are hundreds, if not thousands of skills. Those skills are distributed across multiple tech stacks. Some live in the ATS, some in the HRIS, some in just a competency management system. Some are on paper. Sometimes they're overlapping. Sometimes they're ill-defined. And they're simply not sure where to start because it's complex. So Talent Guard helps organization first and foremost by baselining their skills and their jobs, and we can get very structured, or we could stay very flexible and loose. But we'll say it doesn't matter what format your data is in. It can be in a PDF, a Word doc. It could be in an electronic format. We can access it via an API. We ingest all of that data. And because Talent Guard has data, very deep and broad data across 19 different verticals in our taxonomy that we're keeping up to date on a monthly basis, we're able to normalize and structure and standardize their data set in days and weeks, where it would normally take 18 months to 2 years. I know because we used to do it manually. And so we do it in a matter of hours. And then they have a structured data set that can then power the first experience in Talent Guard, which is usually a very deep talent assessment of someone's skills. And we can assess lots of things, skills that are required in a job role, any additional skills that they might have, aspirational skills, experiences, qualifications, certification. We're building up an incredible passport, which is the talent profile of the employee, that we can use to really do some deep insights and analysis on individual, team, job, family, and then corporate gaps, so that we know how to prioritize and deliver up the right kind of learning. Now, as you probably know and you understand, right, the next thing that happens is most organizations have between 3 and 6 LMS systems. So it's rare to find someone who has a single LMS across all of their business units. So because some of these organizations have grown through acquisition, they have certain subscriptions for certain classes of employees, certain demographics of employees, and then we have to figure out how to manage the linking out to the right LMS or the right learning resource or the right references at the right time based on subscriptions to give that employee a single, seamless view of their learning and action plan. Bringing that together is extremely complex because, first and foremost, you have to have the right data. You have to then have skill-based talent practices. And then you have to be connected in an organization's ecosystem because we're not a nice to have HR tech stack. We're powering the ATS, the LMS, the HRIS. We're powering a lot of the tendering systems, especially in HR tech, and the workforce management system where they're putting people out on assignment. So if we go down, then they would go down. So oftentimes we become very mission critical in an organization to serve up the talent and the talent insights that they need on demand.
Quite impressive. And that is complex when you're dealing with multiple systems. And do you ever find, because there was a big push towards integration and having one suite that does everything, are you seeing a lot of your clients having that? You mentioned it's very rare that you see just one LMS, but never mind just one LMS. Do you see one entire integrated suite?
I think the dream is that we can have one suite that does everything, but in reality, it's just not true. They're going to be where you're going to see suites is on the end-to-end HRIS, handling all the employee demographic data and some of those kind of more HR operational tasks that need to happen. They like to have what I would call a traditional talent management suite. When someone comes to us, they're typically saying we need an upskilling and reskilling solution. They'll see that Talent Guard has a broader platform, and then they want to start buying more modules to complete the end-to-end view of that employee. Mm-hmm. But Talent Guard doesn't have an LMS and we don't have an ATS. So we're typically doing lots of integrations, 3 to 6 integrations per customer. And sometimes it's 2 ATS systems, 3 LMS systems, a reward system, a compensation system. And that data is coming back and forth. For one of our customers, we just pulled a report and there were 1 million transactions a month for that one account across their ecosystem of the number of calls that were being made to the API. So it's high volume data. Mm-hmm. I don't know how anybody could be just a single standalone these days because companies are being pressured to make decisions quickly and they can't make decisions unless they have complete visibility of their workforce. And it's only now that the elements can come together in such a way that organizations can be interoperable and share that data across the various, and it's not just HR tech stacks, it's org tech stacks to bring the kind of data needed for organizations to operate on it.
Absolutely. And I also, by not just having one suite, I think that gives you more flexibility to select the best in breed that works for you. And also, as you mentioned, you have, especially large global organizations, they are not necessarily always that federated or there's a lot of silo, even as much as they want to not to be siloed, but the facts are that they're still siloed. And sometimes, one business needs something now where if they are, and even if they try to have it integrated or centralized in one area, through the rollouts, that business may not be able to get it for another year just because of their centralized functions, capabilities, or bandwidth. So you also
change management. I think change management is the biggest challenge that we would see in an organization, and you're speaking right to that because typically they want to centralize the rollout within a centralized center of excellence within HR. You usually have one functional organization being the adopter of the tech stack, which is usually the organization that's feeling the greatest pain within upskilling and reskilling, and then you roll out from there. But I think too many people pay attention to the solution and not enough attention to risk management. And so, when we talk to our CS team, we're like, look, if you don't have that spine covered, and the spine being head of HR, your executive functional owner, and then the middle management layer who's going to be driving those interactions in the system, and then having that not single-handedly, but over time in a serial continuous way, it's going to fall flat on its face. So we spend I think we spend more time on risk management and change management than training our HR admins on the tool.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And that's just a lot of work. That can't be underestimated.
Right.
It's a lot. Change is hard for organizations. Mm-hmm. It's not only change. When you think about that with any tech stack like Talent Guard, you've got a new technology, new processes, new way to do things, new training, new communications, internal marketing, new ROI, new types of way to report up, new ways to interact with the data, and that doesn't happen overnight.
No, it doesn't. And just, talking through or just kind of, as you mentioned, we are very well aware, especially those that are close to it. But when you say it how you do, it really makes you kind of reflect again how complex it is, and not to underestimate that in your rollout or in your, developing your strategy. You really need to think through all of those elements for it to be successful, and to take into consideration for those, little hiccups along the way that you need to then be able to react to and effectively, because you don't want that to sabotage the overall experience. But if you can prepare for, perhaps some pushback or some stress throughout the process, then I think you can manage it more effectively. And I want to go back to, you mentioned talent mobility as being, one of the areas that this is, I think, helps to provide talent mobility. And that's also, we're seeing as we look at development and leadership and diversity initiatives, how important talent mobility is. Mm-hmm. Can you kind of provide some examples there about how that helps with talent mobility, or how you?
Well, talent mobility is an output of upskilling and reskilling. If you think about it, right? Some organizations are going to upskill within a current job. So we're going to be upskilling and leveling them up on skills that they may have or skills that are needed. And then there's upskilling for, bending the arc of career transition and people's career trajectory, where they're wanting to go from one career to that next career. And they're wanting to identify, what's next for me. So when you have a system like Talent Guard, where you have a many-to-many relationship, meaning many skills can sit across many jobs. And what that does is it gives visibility into what skills are transferable. So instead of me thinking about something that I can move into just up the ladder, I can begin to have visibility into opportunities that I might not be aware of across the lattice, or even right down the ladder, because we have a massive baby boomer population who want to decelerate. So how can we provide insight to these individuals that show, look, you have very valuable skills. Here are the skills that are important to the organization, and here are where those skills are needed. Why don't you think about these skills are transferable. These are the net new skills you would gain. Now let's put you into that role or into a project or into a gig that gives you the ability to gain experience in those particular areas, so that you can decide if you want to take that on full time or not. Mm-hmm. And then handling that transition, right? When you make an internal transition like that, people truly don't understand how complex it is. It kicks off a whole lot of other processes. If, let's say, I'm moving from a marketing manager to a business development manager, my job role is changing. That has to update the HRIS. It's going to put me into a new and different type of performance review. I might be under a new manager, so it's a performance review change. It's a team change. It's a setting expectations change. All of my skills that I had for one job might be the same. It goes into another bucket. New skills come in, right? So that brings on the continuous process. All of the learning and development starts over again, because what's going to be recommended for the new job might be very different from the last job. And then if it's a leadership type of role, we want to begin to think of, if you're used to, managing across or down, now you have to manage up. We might want to do a 360 so that you can have insights on your leadership capabilities. And then you need to start thinking about managing critical talent pools to develop your team. So you have to teach somebody, what do your team insights look like? So there's a lot of triggering that happens, and that's just not an easy process, because as you know, when you move one person, it's a cascading effect. You have to move other people internally. So it's like when you think of the spine of an organization, I promote one, several people can move up and move up and move up. So it's multiple transitions that are happening concurrently, not just one. Because our whole goal is to make sure that we can move talent internally. Our goal is about an 85% internal transition rate. But then we want to expose, if we can make these internal transitions, then where can you go for an external hire?
Right. And being able to retain those internally, even if it's not for the same role, but, they have so much institutional knowledge and this gives them more options or opportunities to want to stay in the company. And maybe it's not to move up, but as you said, to move across or laterally, it just gives people a feeling of not feeling stuck in their position. And oftentimes I think people we've seen in our research, they move on because of lack of opportunities or lack of awareness of opportunities. If they can't move up, then, they know their manager's been in this position for X amount of years and they're not going anywhere anytime soon because the other manager above them is also in their position. So sometimes you've had that mindset we've seen and then they look outside or elsewhere, and that,
right.
That has
that lack of visibility of skills across the organization. And, usually you're going to promote the people that but there might be somebody else in the organization more qualified. So one of the things that we do is when you create your talent pool, we can make the people in that talent pool blind, meaning you can't see someone's picture or someone's name. You just see their talent profile, and they're going to be, in order of the best match based on the query to the least match. And then we can begin to set up exchanges based on your talent profile and your talent and your match, like the way that you've developed yourself over time, in such a way that we're going to serve up the best talent first. And it might not be the person that you think is the right one for the role, but based on the data that we have, you're going to be able to make more data-driven, science-backed, evidence-based decisions about what talent might be right for that role. And that's getting a lot of great feedback, and we're seeing a lot of good ROI on it because it really supports DE&I in a very positive way, because we're seeing not only better transitions internally, but it's more mixed transitions across the board when it comes to, age and your background, where you are from, ethnicity, and those sorts of things.
That's
which
great.
Everybody cares about.
And more companies are either being mandated to have the ability to be more inclusive in their decisions as far as, advancing people or even in the selection. So the more that you have this data that's backed up by science that gives neutrality to why you're selecting certain individuals for certain roles, and whether it's advancing them or purely just selecting them to join your company, this gives you a better, I feel just, it's science-based, and it gives you that transparency.
Yeah.
I wanted to say vulnerability, but that wasn't the right word.
Visibility, transparency, all of the above. It's not easy being a software company and a solution company. The standards are so high because people are so busy. Executives are busy, managers are busy, employees are busy. So you have to be able to prove that you're adding value. And, if we can't prove that we're adding value to the business, then they're not going to stay. So any engagement that we're in, you have to identify those KPIs. And, we have to ask the question, how many people did we reskill? How many people did we upskill? How long did that take us? How many learning resources were tied to that? How many coaches were tied to that? Did we improve the performance of the individual and of the team? It's not just about employee engagement. And that's an important factor as well, because organizations begin this journey sometimes from their employee engagement surveys. But an employee can be engaged, but they might not be performing up to the level that the organization needs, so that the organization can put them in areas of the organization that's going to help them continue to scale and grow. So, I can't understate that enough.
That was a good point about engagement, because that is where a lot of companies start with, or use that as an ROI. Well, my employees are engaged. But what does that mean, to the business?
For the business.
They're happy. So that doesn't mean that they're they're happy because they have 2 hours of a break in that day.
Oh man, but I love 2 hours per break.
Right.
Oh, I think I sleep 2 hours a night, really.
I know. I have trouble sleeping too ever since I've had children, and but
there's no sleep. There's no sleep. Lucky I run on caffeine, so.
We started getting Celsius in our office, and I've only been having one or so a day. And
oh my gosh, I think I would shake.
Yeah, about half like I can. I'm like, I don't know if I should still be drinking some more, but they say it's safe. They say so anyway, well, I think, I would love to hear more from you and share more of your solution, because I think that, it's something that every organization needs, and to have that transparency and insight into their people and into the skills that they have is so crucial, if not now more than ever. And we have our diversity, equity, and inclusion conference next year, and hopefully you'll be.
Oh, I just got an email on that. Yes, I'm excited about that. Yeah.
Everything you were saying kind of integrates with a lot of our topics, and also our Excellence Conference, HCM, in January. We're excited about that next year.
I'm excited to get back out and see people again.
It'll be nice.
I'm so glad conferences have kicked up.
We were really excited. We were hoping last year that we were able to, but it just didn't happen. So, but this year's looking positive, and
nice.
We're again. Thank you so much for sharing your views and examples, and congratulations on your Excellence Award. Before we wrap up, I just would love to also learn about what are some of your business priorities for next year. We have our HCM Outlook study, and we're gathering insights from leaders about what are some of the priorities that you as a technology organization, or what also maybe you're seeing from some of your clients as some of the trends?
Yeah, we're going to continue to invest in data. So we have a lot of real-time data that we have a lot of integrations, keeping what I would call our content management system up to date, where we have our structured taxonomy. But we're going to move more toward verification. So as an example, an employee can self-assess. We can invite in a subject matter expert to assess on certain skill cards, a manager on other skill cards. We're doing some partnerships right now where we can verify through tests on a particular skill, where we have scores now, and other areas where we do a lot of certification management and tracking. So instead of maybe the nurse adding their certificate and their certification go out to the credentialing organizations, pulling that in, keeping that data up to date on the renewals rather than the compliance officer. So we're pulling in more and more evidence-based data to do the verification and validation. So it makes it easier for organizations to do the work that they need to do to get their jobs done. So we'll be investing in a lot of data and partnerships, a lot of content partnerships. We have lots of content companies coming to our door saying we want to map our content to your taxonomy so we can serve it up in a more skill-based way to close the skill gaps. So we'll be investing there, investing in more integrations as we continue to grow. Because as you can imagine, as you get more global, which we are, you just meet more and more vendors that you need to be cooperative with in the ecosystem. So we'll be making some significant investments and change there.
Sounds like you'll be pretty busy.
Yeah. We just opened in Ireland, so we're expanding globally where we have, where we can serve the customer closer to where they are. So lots of growth internationally.
And you're global. How many different locations are you present in?
Yep, we have Mexico City, Austin, Texas, Cork, Ireland, and now we're looking Singapore or Abu Dhabi is next.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, maybe India. We're still deciding, but it's one of those locations.
Okay. Well, that's great. That's very ambitious. And, it's great to see what you have in store for some of your priorities and know how you're serving your clients and the industry. So we look forward to following your kind of where you're headed. And thank you for sharing. And thank you for joining us today.
Great. Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Likewise, I appreciate you too.